Well, let's now talk about Australia. And in Australia, they have detected 4 cases of this particular strain of the virus, this variant from the United Kingdom, this fast-spreading strain. The first confirmed cases of the strain in the Asia-Pacific region. Australia's most populous state, New South Wales, reported 6 new cases of coronavirus in people returning from overseas in quarantine, and authorities said that among them, 2 of these cases of the fast-spreading new strain have been detected. Well, to talk more about the situation in Australia, we're joined by Professor S.S. Vasan from there, the Dangerous Pathogens Team Leader of CSIRO. Thank you so much, Professor, for joining us. First and foremost, tell us about these reports that 4 cases of this new UK strain have been traced in Australia.
Yeah, and that's not unexpected because Australia has a very low case burden at the moment. So far, we've only had about 28,000 cases, and in the last 24 hours, we've had something like 21 cases. Most of these are imported cases. So, and as you correctly mentioned, they are currently coming out of New South Wales, although Victoria had a small number. And it's not unexpected that we are detecting these mutations largely from the imported cases. But I think every country does its own risk assessment. So we are keeping a very close eye on the situation. And we have been tracking these mutations for a long time, so we are well prepared.
Right, and Australia hasn't stopped flights from the UK. A lot of countries were very alarmed with these reports, and immediately flight bans came into place. What is your view about this new strain? And many researchers are saying that what's very remarkable is the number of mutations in all 23, and apparently 17 took place altogether in a very short period, and that's something that surprised researchers.
Yeah, I mean, this is an RNA virus which will mutate, and there's nothing alarming about that. Compared to the flu virus, this is not expected to mutate that fast because it has a sort of a proofreading mechanism. Nevertheless, a virus in a new host will, mutate. So we are not unduly alarmed by this, the scientists concerned. So I think some of the mutations which are of interest here are the H6970 deletion. The previous speaker mentioned the N501Y, and also this is on top of another mutation which we have been tracking and studying, which is called the G strain or the D614G. So I think what is slightly of interest to us scientists is that we are looking at accumulated mutations, but the number of mutations themselves is not particularly alarming to us, and this is something we have to wait and watch.
Right, and so far all experts are agreeing that the mutations aren't expected to affect the vaccines that have been developed. What is your view on that?
Yeah, they are not very likely to affect the vaccines. So my lab here, we were the first in the world to show through experiments backed by computer modeling that the previous mutation, which was widely reported in the media, known as G strain, which is also a clade which will transmit more readily, but not necessarily leading to a more severe disease. So we were the first to show that vaccines, including the Oxford vaccine, which is manufactured in the Serum Institute of India in Pune, is not going to be affected by that particular mutation. Based on what we know up to this point, I think we can be reasonably confident that vaccines may not be affected. However, unless we confirm this experimentally, we scientists want to be cautious. We can only do that by end of January or so, because based on, I was in a WHO teleconference last night, and based on the current situation, for scientists to be able to establish that will take some time.
All right, and speaking of vaccines, what is the status of COVID research in Australia's science agency?
So at the CSIRO, which is the National Science Agency, we were the first to establish the ferret model, and we did a lot of preclinical studies for the leading vaccines, including the Oxford vaccine. We also tested the Oxford vaccine intranasally, as well as giving it as an injection. So we've submitted those results to the regulatory agencies, which fed into those clinical studies, which subsequently happened. We have also been doing a lot of research on tracking these mutations, trying to understand the impact of these mutations on vaccines and so on. I've also been working on clinical research right now, working with various clinical collaborations here to look at prognosis for COVID-19. So a lot of interesting research is happening. But what I would like to emphasize is we also work very closely with India, with IGIB, which was mentioned earlier. So this is a global disease, and we have to be very collaborative and work with each other to combat this problem.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor Vasan, for speaking to us here at NDTV.